welcome to Parallel Lives. I'm Dimmer, and my co-host Levi is not here tonight. He couldn't make it. Today we're talking about maladaptive daydreaming as a self-soothing strategy. And joining us today for that is Jack Black, an American college student, Mon, 23-year-old Ukrainian international student in Canada, and Rem, an 18-year-old college student in the USA. So, guys, was there ever a time where you thought that maladaptive daydreaming might have been your only option for your mental well-being to keep yourself sane, I guess?
I mean, it just for me, even now, just with COVID and having to stay home and everything, like you're just so lonely and you can't see your friends, and it's like it's a place where you can feel safe and loved even when you can't go anywhere, and then it just becomes an addictive thing that makes you feel good, and then you kind of just get used to it and depend on it. So right now I'm kind of going through that, just trying to push through it now that the world is opening up again, and that means I should probably open up too.
I never thought of it as the only option I have, but I would always want to go to therapy or see a doctor. But in some situations, it was the only thing I had. And until I got therapy, it was out of options. So it would be the only one.
So was there a time where that was my only option? Well, when I was younger, I did not have the option to pursue therapy. Now that I'm older, it's different. But back then, that was kind of all that I had, and it helped, and it served its purpose.
So you never had the option of therapy until recently. Now that you have like an option between both of them, which would you choose?
At some point, like a habit forms, right? Like that's how it feels to me. Like if you didn't have access to therapy back then, like you already formed a habit of daydreaming. So it's kind of too late. You already have it. And now you have to deal with that too.
Yeah, definitely. It's already, oh, what am I saying? By the time you maybe realize you need therapy, you're already in so deep.
I definitely feel that. Like I feel like I know probably like therapy is like so good and helps so many people, and I feel like it could really help me. But now it's like I already have a routine. I already have people I can talk to. Maybe they don't exist, but they serve their purpose and they make me happy. So it's like my brain is telling me, why would you put yourself out there? Why would you go see a stranger and possibly get judged by it when you can just stay home and be happy on your own? So it's kind of feels like it's too late for that option when it really shouldn't be.
I didn't realize that it could prevent people from going into therapy.
I have all three of you. We didn't ask in the beginning. But are you guys in therapy or?
No,
I'm not.
I'm currently seeing a counselor from my college, which I guess counts because she is a therapist. And I'm seeing a psychiatrist from college too. Not for daydreaming though, like for multiple reasons, for ADHD and I guess for daydreaming too. But it's just like a side effect of everything else.
What about you, Jack? And you do not have to answer. I know it's a personal question.
No therapy yet, but Mon just reminded me that my college also offers counseling, so thanks, Mon.
No problem.
Yeah, for all the college students out there, sometimes your university will have resources like that you can hit up for free or reduced cost.
That's the best part. Everything there is free. I'm just using as many resources as I can until my student resources run out. So.
Oh yeah, squeeze every little bit you can out of school.
I'm paying them. I'm paying them a lot. So like they better provide me with everything.
I'm also not in therapy, but I've never done this. Okay. So we've kind of made this episode with the sort of the underlying assumption for the guest today is that they would be people who tend to do this, who tend to talk to an imaginary therapist or something like that. And I've never done that. Like, I don't explain my problems to my characters or my daydreams.
I don't explain them explicitly to characters. It's usually a lot of unconscious actions. It's just like a story or a movie folding out, and there is, of course, an underlying theme in every episode, if you can say that. But it's not the same as talking to a therapist. It's less explicit, and I don't understand what's going on most of the time.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm sure like things in my head are probably playing out through my daydreams. I'm just not aware of it. What about you, Rem and Jack? Do you guys like explicitly like sit down with a character and talk to them like they're an imaginary professional?
Times it's, I mean, they're not my main dreams. Like when I have music playing, those are my crazy TV show stories. But whenever I'm just kind of sitting by myself and I'm alone and I'm feeling sad and I feel like I can't tell anybody in the real world what's bothering me, sometimes I'll imagine just some fake counselor maybe, and I tell her everything that's wrong, and then of course I get to decide what she says back to me. If I don't like what she's telling me, then I just change the narrative because I don't want to feel worse. And then usually after 5-10 minutes of doing that, then usually I calm down and I feel better. But that's actually happened more recently. It never did as a child, but now sometimes I just need to vent, and I don't want to put that stuff in my fantasy dreams, so they're separate for me.
Yeah, I think of it more like complaining to a friend than therapy, but sometimes it's more like a thin veneer over me talking directly to myself and sorting out all my thoughts. Is kind of the way I organize them. So I figured some stuff out with it. It's still not, you don't have an objective view of your own life and you don't have all the facts. And so I think it's important to note that it's not a substitute for actual therapy. Cheaper though. A lot cheaper.
Cheaper.
I feel like we skated over something. I think, oh my gosh, I'm already forgetting. I think Rem had brought it up that that maladaptive daydreaming was preventing you from how did you put it? Do you remember?
So yeah, it's kind of an obstacle into going to therapy because
That's right. Going
it's
to
so
therapy.
much more comfortable. Yeah. I can see why, because in therapy you can hear a lot of unpleasant things you don't want to hear from a person who, like, it can feel demeaning when someone who you think doesn't know much about you actually knows a lot about you from
Yeah.
a few sessions. And they tell you, like, they don't always tell you what to do, but they give you suggestions, and it can feel it's always stressful, but it can also feel insulting in some ways. And imaginary therapy sessions, of course, are much more comfortable because you're in full control of what both parties say. Like, the therapist will always react in your imagination how you want them to react. But that's not helpful because you can't really figure out how to help yourself without external help often.
I was just gonna say, I don't know if it's just me, but I guess some part of me is afraid that by what I say, they're gonna think that there's something wrong with me, and maybe they'll try and give me medication and try and stop my maladaptive daydreaming. And even though I know it's unhealthy at times, I don't want to lose it. I don't want to like turn it down and be controlled by medicine because some therapist doesn't understand what I have, and they'll just see all the negatives. They won't see the positives that I do. And if they try and give me drugs or put me through something I'm not comfortable with, I don't know how to tell them, like, I need this. This isn't all bad. This is good. Like, please don't diagnose me with something that I don't feel is necessarily true. You're just interpreting my symptoms as that. So that's just me. I'm kind of fearful that they'll see something wrong with me that I don't agree with.
If it's okay, I would there are a lot of misconceptions about therapy. First of all, you are paying them, so you can drop them whenever you want. You can just, if you don't pay them, they won't help. Like they won't do anything. So it's easy. Like they're not doctors. They can't even like they can't enforce anything. And therapists are also not allowed to prescribe medication. They can refer you to a doctor, but in majority of cases, they're not allowed to prescribe medications on their own. And you can always say, like, I want to see a real doctor. Thank you for your suggestion for medication. And you can always change the therapist because, yes, they sometimes prescribe medication if they think it will help, but you can always say no if you don't want to take it. It's not the only option available.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that. I guess that's always kind of been like a fear throughout my life.
The whole thing is so confusing. There are psychiatrists, psychotherapists. They don't make it easy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
that's not-
psychiatrists are the ones who can prescribe medication. If they don't have the training to prescribe that, then they, like Mon said, they can suggest it, but they can't ever force it on you.
I've had similar fears to Rem. My fears around going to therapy is that it will work really well.
You don't have to worry about that, trust me. It's such a long process. It's like,
yeah, that's why I've been doing it on my own, so that I can go up at my own pace and step down and not feel like I'm accountable to anyone but myself. Like I don't want it to work too quickly. But yeah. But it does, it's I mean, I do also use maladaptive daydreaming to self-soothe. I think most maladaptive daydreamers do, even though I'm not, like consciously using it that way. I probably most definitely am in other ways. But it does come with so many negatives. I think Jack touched on those earlier too when he said, oh, what did you say? That it can only something like it can only take you so far because in the end you're talking to yourself. You're very, very biased.
Yeah. And what Mon said earlier about control, I think that's a big thing in MD in general, is you can control everything. You can make it so nothing bad ever happens and nobody ever, dislikes you or says anything you don't want to hear, which is not great because we need to be able to face the uncomfortable parts of life and process that without a dissociative sort of fog keeping it from affecting us as deeply.
Yeah, exactly. So does maladaptive daydreaming interfere with feeling natural stressors that you should be maybe engaging with head on, to grow as a person? Does it prevent you guys from doing that?
For me, that's really been more prevalent recently. Like, I know I got to go to college. I know I have work to do. I got to meet people. Like, I'm trying to do what's healthy for me and go out, maybe make some friends, all of that stuff. But inwardly, and when I read that question in the chat, I realized how true it is. Just because anytime I get too stressed and I realize I have to get this set up, I need to do my tuition, like all that stuff, all of a sudden I just feel like, man, if I could just play a song and go somewhere else, I'll feel a lot better. Or I'll just, my mind will immediately take me out of what I was trying to do, and then I'm getting behind on what I need to order, and I'm not stressed about it, but I should be stressed about it. But I don't want to be stressed, so I'm just thinking about things that make me happy, but it's not good anymore. But I'm struggling with that right now.
Mon or Jack, do you feel like it prevents you from
yeah,
growing in that way?
It definitely does. I think our brains can't really distinguish if the stress is real or not. Like, especially it can be seen with anxiety. Because to people with anxiety, their fears are real. They feel as real as the real threats. So the brain can't really tell if it's a fake stress or not. So helpful stress gets thrown under the bus too. And I would just beeline to daydreaming, like regardless of what the stressor is. And the only thing that helps is like the only thing my brain can distinguish is the level of stress. So at some point when it becomes unmanageable, then I go to daydreaming. But if I can keep the stress under that level, I can deal with it to that extent.
That's actually something I am struggling with at the moment is what are real anxieties and what are like not rooted in reality. Like I'm always waking my husband up in the middle of the night because I heard a scary noise. Like I'm super crazy about locking the house up at night because I feel like someone's going to come in, and he's like, that's not going to happen. We live in a very safe place where nobody even has to lock their doors. Like axe murderers are not going to bust in the middle of the night, and I'm just over here like, but they do. Like this happens to people, and it's never going to happen to us until it does. Like it feels like I think it's a legitimate like.
Yeah, I can see why, because I feel like living in houses is really scary, just in general. But if you're on the ground floor, it's scary, and that's all I have to say. But
Scary
I know
if
it's.
you're on the top floor to hear noise.
I mean, I live in an apartment building, and that's why it feels safer to me, because you have to go through a concierge and the elevator and have the keys and have the electronic keys just to get to my floor. So that makes me feel kind of safer. Also, I can't really help you calm down because I watch too much true crime. So
Yeah.
it does happen, and in good neighborhoods too. And if you need help purchasing a set of cameras, let me know.
Yeah. Well, that's part of why it's so hard to tell sometimes, like what stressors are real and healthy and that you should be dealing with, and which ones are just unreasonable ruminations of your mind.
Sorry if I circle back to counseling, but that's actually what I ask my counselor a lot. I just present her with everything I'm stressed about, and I'm like, wait, what should I be worried about? Like, can you circle the ones I should be worried about? And I would know. And so I meet with her only like once in 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, the counselors are pretty busy, plus I've been talking to her for a long time. And it's like a check for me. Like, she grounds me to what is real and what is not, because I have anxiety and I'm really prone to overthinking. So even though it happens like once a month, I need someone to tell me, these stresses are real, and these ones, why do you even have them? What happened there? So this is how therapy, like with Maladaptive Daydreaming, it's also helpful, because there are a lot of stressors in the background. Like you said, like, what if someone gets into my house? What if? And it could be anything.
Yeah. And then, using the maladaptive daydreaming to self-soothe, like, does that help with any of these? Does it help you tell the difference between healthy and sort of unhealthy ways of experiencing stress? Is that something you can even talk out with yourself in your imagination?
No, it just helps me ignore the problems. It's not helpful. Like, real or not, it like stops me from dealing with any of the problems.
I feel like it does that for me too. It just helps me ignore the problems and they get worse. But Jack, does it do that to you guys too? Or do you find it kind of helpful to figure things out for yourself?
Me personally, it helps me de-stress and get away from life, but I think it's not necessarily a good thing a lot of the time, though, because I do need to get back to more important things in life. And if I'm stressed or overthinking something, thinking about fake scenario, fake people isn't gonna help me get back to the real world. But it temporarily gives me that soothing method, but whenever it actually helps me when I'm doing something really important, sometimes when I'm doing homework or reading, just to kind of sit back and let my mind wander and maybe play just a little story at the same time. And then I'm doing two things at once so that I'm not completely stressed about what I'm doing in the real world and I'm not completely in my daydream. So I'm kind of doing both at the same time so that I'm making both of them happy at the same time. And I'm not ignoring what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm still somewhat dreaming. And that really helps me recently. It just, of course, the main problem is making sure that I don't look like I'm zoning out in front of people when I'm supposed to be working on something important. So that's me now.
What about for you, Jack?
I think sort of in a roundabout way, anything that I try to block out the most, like talking to strangers, taking any social sort of risks, immediately I'll start daydreaming to get away from that feeling. So I know that because I'm so, desperate to not feel that stress, it's the stress that I should be tackling most, if that makes sense.
Oh, weird. So it it does tip you off, but in kind of a backwards way.
Yeah.
What is it that you guys think makes maladaptive daydreaming or even just immersive daydreaming, even if it's not necessarily maladaptive, but like this type of deep state daydreaming, sort of uniquely suited for self-soothing, whether it turns out to be a good idea or a bad idea to self-soothe that way, irrelevant. But what makes maladaptive daydreaming what's the word? Attractive for that? Desirable? I don't know. I can't think of a good word, but I think you know what I mean.
Like, why is it a good idea? Why it's good at soothing people?
Yeah, not why it's a good idea. It might not be a good idea. We're not going to make a claim on that. just why people would do it so much. What?
I mean, to me personally, I've always kind of thought of it like a drug that's addictive, but it's not going to hurt you. Like, it's not physically hurting your body. You're not hurting anybody else. You're just, even if it does have consequences, you're not hurting the environment. Like, you're not making your family or your friends uncomfortable. You're not saying the wrong thing. You're just, it's something that makes you feel good, but you're not hurting anybody or yourself. So just, and of course, it does get unhealthy when you start doing it for long periods of time when you should be doing more important stuff, which I have to struggle with. I'm sure a lot of you guys do too, but for the most part, it's an easy thing you can do, and you don't have to leave your house. You don't have to go see somebody. You don't have to look nice. Like, you can do it wherever you want, whenever you want. So it's a very easy outlet to soothe, even if it is unhealthy and you just don't know it yet.
I agree with the point that it's so easy. I know it will sound like a sales pitch, but so daydreaming is both accessible and also flexible. So as Ram said, it's really accessible, it's easy to do. It's accessible to anyone. You only need your imagination. It's free, it's easy to access, it's there all the time. It's literally in your brain. You don't have with other addictions, you can get rid of the addictive element, but you can just get rid of all the daydreams in the house. Like, it's not what can happen. And it's also really flexible from what we see with people having all types of daydreams, all kinds of scenarios. It's really tailored to your needs. So it's really, whichever you're struggling with, it helps you with that. And that's why it's so difficult to quit, because nothing else feels as good to many people, because nothing else makes you feel as good as maladaptive daydreaming does.
Any thoughts on that one, Jack?
I was kind of stuck on the thing about looking nice. Do you have to look nice for a therapist? I would think they'd be the most accepting of the unmade hair, everything, sweat-stained hoodie, They know
To be
it.
fair, you kind of have this desire to impress the therapist by I'm doing so well. Look at how well I'm doing. Look at me. You kind
Get
of
an A+ in therapy.
Oh yes, it feels like it. You're like, are you impressed? I'm doing so well. I'm dressed up.
I love that that's what you got hung up on. I got hung up on something in there too, but I got totally derailed. I can't remember what it was. I was like, oh, I got to ask about that. And now it's gone. Ah, damn it.
For people with bad attention span trying to have a conversation.
This was a
Where's
terrible idea.
Levi?
I know. Where is he? He needs to keep us on track. Oh man, I'm never going to remember. What were you saying, Mon? Maybe it'll come back to me. Like, what were your big points?
I have bad memory too.
Damn.
It's flexible and accessible. Like you can do it anywhere. It's free, and
Yeah. It is.
And-
It is super
and
easy.
because everyone like, gets different scenarios, you can see how it's really flexible and like whatever you need from daydreaming, it will give you. So it's difficult to change like
And
your
it's
habits.
private. Nobody else needs to know about it.
Yeah, so it's not as stigmatized. Nobody is going to notice. Like with alcoholism, you can see bottles, you can see a person physically getting worse. But daydreaming is really, really private. Like other than pacing, you can't really see much.
I remember what it was. It was sales pitch. That's what I got hung up on. You said this is going to sound like a sales pitch, and it really does because the way we describe it, like it's
It's so good.
yeah.
Now for $9.99 a month. Daydreaming. Wait, you said it was free. Read the fine print, everybody.
Yeah, the fine print is you're going to fail all the relationships you have. You might lose your job, and also you'll fail all the courses. But other than that, it's really great. You'll be doing fine.
And if you don't, another point for MD is if you don't have a lot of close relationship in your life, it can act as a sort of replacement for that, which it has a downside. It can discourage you from seeking out real, imperfect relationships with real people that you can't control how they think of you.
I think I definitely. I mean, I'm such an introvert in real life. I've had a lot of friends that I've kind of grown up, gone to different schools, went their own way, and it's really hurt when they've done that. And then mentally, I had to come up with another scenario to make me feel like I was wanted and people did want to be my friend. And then I stopped going out and trying to make new friends because I felt like they would eventually just leave too. But the people in my head aren't going to leave. And I never dreamed about real life scenarios as much anymore because those were too unpredictable and nobody likes realistic stories anyway. So I would just make fake ones. And now I don't have too many close friends, but I have a lot of people in my head. So there's that. So I definitely need to try and get back out there and make real friends. But it's hard when you always have somewhere else to go that everyone's going to love you, but the real world isn't that nice all the time.
Yeah, that's what I would say actually. Exactly what you just described is what makes it so unique as sort of a self-soothing strategy. It's because it's so divorced from reality. It's just a completely different state of mind. But I understand that not all maladaptive daydreamers daydream the same. And for me, like it's an altered state. Like I'm in a trance when I do it. There's no ego. There's not much sense of the real world. So I guess that's where the coping skill comes in. Like it's real things are gone. They're just gone.
Like no one cares about the real world when you're dreaming. Like it can just disappear. Like go somewhere that's completely weird, completely odd. If anybody could go inside my head, they'd be like, "What am I looking at here?" Like I don't even know what I'm looking at half the time.
Yeah, but in the meantime, because I am completely divorced from reality for like big long stretches, like everything's going to hell around me, which I think sort of leads into, like we've discussed why it's good, but like also why it's bad, and what kind of small steps or tips maybe do you guys employ to sort of step away from overusing maladaptive daydreaming in that way?
Well, as I'm getting older, I think my brain's changing. I'm kind of learning how to deal with myself a little better, and part of that is having a little better self-control and a little more kind of not courage, but being able to make myself do stuff, being able to make myself work through some level of discomfort to kind of grow, to not continue the habit of shying away from any sort of discomfort, any place outside of my comfort zone. So that's a big thing, is just, stepping out and working through that, even when it does not feel good.
Sometimes when I feel like my maladaptive daydreaming is like so much and I just need to do something realistically to get out of that, sometimes I'll think of like, oh, I should text this friend. It's been a while, but then my brain all of a sudden starts playing all these fake scenarios like they're not going to text me back. They don't like you. They moved on. Everything's fine. Let's go here, like change the narrative. And then I'm like, no, no, no. I'm going to message that friend. I'm going to let the world play out the way it's supposed to. I'm not going to think of 30 different things that could happen, and most likely they're all going to be bad. Like I have to let the world like take its course. Like I can't just sit back and play out all these scenarios of what could happen and then just not do it at all. I have to actually put something in motion. Usually that has to do with like calling or texting a friend or just going shopping instead of imagining myself going out shopping and enjoying myself. Like it's not the same thing. I have to realize the difference between what's real and what's not, and actually do what's real, even if it's not fun or it might not work out well, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
It does make sense. It's that's one of the things that I'm doing as well. It's prioritizing. Yeah, I made a decision that I'm always going to answer that friend, just like you were saying, where you need to tell yourself like, no, I'm going to message them back. But I do that as well. That's all I was saying.
Like small rules. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like small rules help. I do that with emails instead of messages. Because if I'm not going to reply in the next 5 minutes, I'm just going to daydream and never reply. So if I make it a rule that when I read an email and I need to reply, I reply immediately, it helps. Like these small tasks that can screw you up, because you forget about them when you daydream. It really helps to make these really small rules.
Yes, I absolutely agree. But and Core had said something too that I wanted to revisit a little, because it reminded me of therapy. I know I said I'd never been to therapy, but I have been in a maladaptive daydreaming treatment program. Weren't you in that too, Mon?
Yes, and I failed miserably.
Yeah, so did I. Because of what Jack was saying. Jack was talking about sort of gaining the courage, I guess, to work through like discomfort and facing it head on, and that was a thing that sort of got touched on, and I couldn't do it. That was when I failed. It was like week 5 or something of the 8-week program, and it was trying to. I mean, we can't sort of divulge what was in the treatment program was, but there was there was mindfulness and stuff, and one of the exercises was to turn into your feelings. So when you feel that discomfort, don't turn away from it, turn into it and examine it and work through it. And that was, that's what Jack was saying. That's what Jack is doing, and that's where I failed.
Maybe that's why you're afraid of therapy, because therapy is like that's the entire thing. You're talking about your feelings. That's it. But yeah, I failed on week 2. And that's because it was before I was diagnosed with ADHD, and I couldn't sit through a 3-minute meditation for the life of me. I was like, I can't. I literally can't. I will die if I have to sit still for 3 minutes. And I just... Back then, I didn't know why. I didn't even... It's not because I was daydreaming. I was just like, okay, it's just 3 minutes, but I can't handle it. And I just won't. And after that, of course, even though I failed the program, I still discussed it with my therapist. And there are many options. The program is it's one of the few and the first programs that they try for treating daydreaming. So it's new, it's very strict, and it's very specific. But the therapy itself and the methods they're using are pretty flexible. So, for example, with ADHD, I can't really sit still for a long period of time. So I do meditations that you do while you're walking. So I don't have to sit still. I can do meditation while I walk. It's just a different one. So it's nice that they try, but it doesn't it doesn't one shoe fit all type of thing.
Yeah, I feel like I'm really feeling the need to sort of clarify here that we just use the word like failed the program a lot, but there is no
we just
failing.
quit.
Yeah, we quit. We didn't fail. Like that's not how treatment works. You don't fail. You just sometimes you backslide and you move forward with it. I just didn't want to give the wrong impression.
Yeah, just because of the rules for the program where you have to do it. Like in therapy, you can do it at your own pace, but in that program, you have to do it at their pace.
Yeah, because it was a study. They were collecting data, so they they kind of had to stick to a schedule.
What you gotta do with that, or at least what I'm finding, is you gotta kind of take small steps. There's this picture I like. It has 3 circles. One is comfort zone, and the one directly outside of that is growth zone, and then the one outside of that is panic zone. So you gotta push yourself, but also retreat a little bit when it gets to be too much, and not go out and give a speech or something on the first day that you try it. So I guess for me, I don't know what sort of issues specifically you guys deal with, but for me, a lot of it is socially focused, so I don't want to talk to people because it's scary. So that's where my focus is. But if your focus is elsewhere, I don't know. You could still use the advice, just taking baby steps and being gentle with yourself.
Wait, that's brilliant. Where did you hear this concentric circle thing?
It's somewhere. It's I think like a psychologist or something made it. I can find the image somewhere.
Yeah, they actually gave me one in counseling. If I have an image, I'll pull it up. Maybe later.
What
You
was
can
the
see images.
inside circle?
Comfort zone.
Yeah.
Oh, comfort, growth,
and panic.
So as you said that, I was like, that's exactly what MD is. Like you come out of the comfort, you tool around in growth for a little while, and then as soon as as maladaptive daydreamers, like as soon as we hit that panic line going into the third circle, like I feel like that's when MD kicks in and it's like, nope, we're going back, baby, come on.
Yeah, it's protective sort of thing. You gotta think of it maybe as like an overzealous guard dog that thinks everything is scary and dangerous and might harm you. And you just gotta kind of slowly teach it that that's not true, and that, it can make friends outside of that little bitty comfort zone circle.
Yeah, the trick is to get out of your comfort zone, but don't go into the panic zone. Like, try to be out there, but don't press yourself too much, or you'll retreat back and you'll panic.
Is that helpful sometimes though? Like we've talked about a lot of when it's not a helpful thing to do. But we're not. I think maladaptive daydreamers are a lot more prone to employing that maybe when they shouldn't, but especially for immersive daydreamers, just non-pathological immersive daydreamers. Like pulling yourself back from panic must be helpful in some situations. Like are there times for you guys when it has proved to be a helpful technique?
Personally, like when I was younger, if I ever had like a doctor's appointment or a big surgery or something I was really, really afraid of, I could just daydream it away. Like I didn't even know I was doing it. Of course, when I was a kid, I didn't know what I had. I didn't know why I was different from everybody else in my family and friends. But it was just so helpful to just think of something else and then physically with your hands and your head like pacing, it just kind of takes over, and then you're so physically and mentally separate from the problem that I didn't have any room in my head to be afraid of what I was doing anymore, from a doctor appointment to meeting someone. Like it was helpful then, but now that I'm older, I have to I have to be alert enough to know what's going on. I can't be completely gone, but it's very helpful in those situations for me to just kind of step back and not be 100% with it. Otherwise, I'm going to like freak out. So, yeah, that's my experience.
I think for me, the only place where it's really helpful in a way I could like condone is making phone calls. Making phone calls is terrifying, but if I have like this imaginary friend, basically they're like having my back, then I can do it. I'll sweat through my shirt within a minute, but I can do it.
I'm trying to think of the times when it was helpful, but I really can't tell. Like, of course, it helped me, but for every occasion I can think of something healthier that I could have done, or less destructive that could have helped. I know in theory there is nothing wrong with daydreaming, and as a coping strategy, it's not really bad. It's either I was told this or I read it somewhere, but any healthy coping strategy can become unhealthy if it's used in excess. So it's, as long as you don't, immersive daydreaming is totally fine. Like you can daydream about different scenarios and not have your life ruined if you're not addicted to it. So it's not bad in itself. But in my personal experience, I never had a time where it was completely healthy. The interesting thing is, so there is this technique in therapy called I can't pronounce it. It's called visualization. If anyone can pronounce, still
You
can
pronounced
pronounce
it
it.
pretty well.
No, yeah, you're pretty damn close, Mon. Visualization.
Visual is, oh my god, visualization. Too many S and U's in one word.
Visualization.
I can't say visual, but I can't say words that are longer than visual. Visualization. Oh my god. Sorry.
That was pretty perfect.
So visualization is a tool in therapy where you imagine relaxing scenarios to distance yourself from stress, to unwind. And it's actually what therapists use. And it's similar to immersive daydreaming. It's like immersive daydreaming for beginners in therapy. Of course, I can't use that tool because I don't use it healthily with maladaptive daydreaming. But it's actually something people use for therapy. Like in limited scenarios, daydreaming is completely healthy, even immersive. Like, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I think I kind of sit with you on all that. I think because I've been maladaptive for so long, since I was so young, it just sure it was a great Band-Aid for immediate soothing, but it just never. It was never a net positive. It always resulted in things getting worse, which I think it's sort of so. So the thing with maladaptive daydreamers, right, is we tend to start really young. Like you don't often hear about someone in their 30s or 40s just developing maladaptive daydreaming. They're always like 5, 11, 9, like those kind of ages.
Yeah.
That would be interesting though, hearing from somebody who developed it late.
Yeah, I haven't met one or two. We'll have to see if we can track down a couple. Yeah, yeah.
Do that podcast up with that.
What was there a moment, sort of, because when you're young, even if it is maladaptive, even if it's already maladaptive, or if it became maladaptive later, but when you're young, you don't recognize that. You don't really know what it is. You don't see it as a bad thing, and really, if you're young enough, nobody else around you really sees it as a bad thing either, because it's normal for children to be imaginative. So was there like a moment or a time, like, period, where that made you realize that this form of coping, or this form of oh my god, now I'm having trouble pronouncing things. This form of self-soothing was not gonna work out the way you had hoped?
In an unhealthy environment, any sort of maladaptive coping mechanism can kind of suit the situation. And sometimes it's only when you get out of that environment that it starts to cause problems, because you're in a healthy environment now that doesn't conform to your strategies for life.
That you are not adapted to?
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Oh, that was a pun. Ah ha ha. So I kind of just I think it was when I saw people talking about the impact it had on the relationships, how they spurned social contact to spend time daydreaming. I realized I did that too, and thought maybe this is a bad idea. Maybe this isn't good long term. And there were people who had quit, and that was very interesting. I hadn't realized that could happen, that people could quit, because it feels so unending. It feels so like I could never lose these people in my head, but you have a better life without them. So
Yeah, well, I think most of us know that feeling.
Yeah, it feels like such a large part of your life. It's kind of difficult to imagine it without daydreaming.
Yeah, like I feel like without it, it would feel like missing a limb or something like that makes you who you are. Like without it, I ask myself like, who would I be? What would I act like if I didn't have this
yeah.
anymore?
Yeah, I'm very curious what my life would be like. Like, how would it feel? Sorry, I'm so curious. Like, how is it if you don't daydream for like 4 hours a day or more?
Be really lonely. Like my head would be so quiet. Like it'd be too quiet. There wouldn't be enough voices.
But what if you did something else? Like, what if instead you were doing something else? Because people always find something to do, like something to occupy their mind with. So if you're not daydreaming, you will probably find something else to do. Like, I'm always curious what would that be for me? Like, if I didn't spend all the time and brain power on daydreaming, what would I channel it to?
Like, would I be a productive person? Would I have a job? Would I be really social? Like, I have no idea what I'd be doing with all this time that I'm trying to make sure the people in my head are happy and doing something with their lives. And meanwhile, I'm doing absolutely nothing.
Like, not even that. Of course, I would like to be productive, but like, daydreaming makes me happy. So I would have to find something else that makes me happy. And I'm just curious what that would be. Because I tried to quit daydreaming and I lasted for about 3 weeks, about a year or two ago. And during that time, my brain, it wasn't panicking, it was low-key panicking. It was just looking for ways to spend its like, energy and brain power on something. And I noticed that I started singing, and I never sang before. Like I would want to sing and try it as a new hobby, and it made me happy. So I noticed how immediately brain goes into doing something else, and it's not something I even expected to do. So that's why I'm curious, like, what would make me happy if it wasn't daydreaming? What would it be?
I think we're getting like really close to sort of the core of this topic. Cause like with what we were saying before, what were we saying before? It was connected somehow. It was. I'm having a thought, a really good thought.
Oh no.
I just gotta get it out.
I feel like I'm in ADHD support group.
I feel like we should put this episode out raw so people can just see what a mess maladaptive daydreamers are.
This is what Deborah goes through every time that she has to edit.
Oh my God.
Because it becomes such a part of your personal identity, and especially where we've done it for so long, we don't know any other way. Like it's just your brain. It's your brain. Like how do you like Rem said, like if I got rid of my daydreaming, it would just be like losing a limb. It is a physical part of my being. But I think that's why, like Mon was saying, why sort of this topic, exploring the self-soothing aspect of maladaptive daydreaming, why that's important. You can't just say, well, it's a stupid strategy that you should not employ because it just leads to ruin. But there is a line, like if we can figure out where it's okay to self-soothe with imagination and where it's becoming a problem for us, then we could make the transition into non-pathological immersive daydreaming, and we could still keep that part of ourselves, but not be maladaptive.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think of it like a black and white, either I daydream or I never daydream ever. And for some people, that's the choice they have to make. But it does feel like losing a limb, just even thinking about that. So for most people, I think moderation is the key to living healthily with this and still, making a compromise.
It's weird because I never felt like I would lose much if I lost maladaptive daydreaming. It doesn't feel like losing a limb to me. Like I really, for a long time, I have like my old diaries from middle school and high school, and like my old journals, and I just want to stop, and I can't, and I don't like. I enjoy daydreaming on the I get dopamine from it, but I really, really want to stop, and I want it for a long time, and I just can't, and I want to stop completely, and it just won't go away. So I think, given that I'm definitely wasn't successful at quitting completely, moderating is a good option. But I can see how some other people, and including me, would want to completely quit it because I don't see any use in it. I'm not really attached, except for the dopamine thing. Emotionally, I'm not as attached.
Yeah, I didn't realize this about you, Mon. You're kind of one of the more rare ones. You're like Halo.
Maybe I have it easier that way. There is of course some emotional attachment, but not to the I would like to just erase the part of my brain that contains daydreaming, and it's the content of it just completely. I want it to go. It doesn't.
What about you, Rem? Do you think that transition is possible, where we can find the difference between how to employ it in a healthy way?
I mean, for me, I think part of me, which is like it's hard to tell other people, especially non-adaptive daydreamers, because they think it's stupid. But like when you're a kid and then you grow up, like I've created these people and these worlds. Like I don't just grab characters from movies and TV shows. I mean, I do that, but there are also people that didn't exist before my daydreaming, and if I stopped, I feel like they would die with me. Like if I didn't tell their story, it wouldn't be told. If I didn't see them, no one would see them. And then I have to stop myself, and I'm like, they don't exist. Like you're not hurting anybody if you stop, but it's so hard thinking of just stopping because I don't want to feel like I'm losing all these people that they're only alive like because of me. And if I stop, it's all going to just come crashing down, which is which is scary to think about, but I know I would probably be healthier in the long run if I wasn't depending on people that don't exist. But the thought of just like never seeing them again, that's hard to think about for me. It's pretty emotionally attached, especially when they've been there since I was like a child. So that's my input.
Yeah. No, I would burst into tears if we went down that rabbit hole too much further. I know exactly how you feel. Yeah, it's I do my characters are also all original, and I've also ever only had one like paracosm. Like I'm 35 and I started at around the age of 5. Like I've known these people, I'm doing air quotes, for 30 years. 30 years, and I know they're not real, but I grew up with them. We had kids together. I've thought about them for hours every day of my life. They're important to me. They're a part of my life, and I know rationally that it's just a story. It's not real. I could get rid of it and live a happy life, but I don't know. There's something there. I can't explain it, and you will never be able to pry it from my hands. Like I don't know. Like that's why balance, I think, is so important to so many maladaptive daydreamers, because if you tell them like you're never going to daydream again, like you've already lost them. They'll sit in their ruined life and daydream rather than have it ripped away from them.
Oh yeah, like I've had people try and tell me like they're not real, like just stop. If it's unhealthy, then just stop. Or
It's just that's not how it works.
it's really bad. I mean, and then I just get so angry. It's like, don't tell me to do that. It's like, what would you rather me be doing with my spare time? And then they don't say anything. They're like, I don't know, just not that. Like, well, thanks. That's helpful. Not. So
Would it help though? Would it help to think of the characters as just like reflections of yourself? Like you never truly lose them because they're you in a way. Even if you don't daydream as much, you're still carrying them in your personality, in your actions.
I mean,
no.
I guess to me, I guess it would still feel like I know they're a part of me. I know that they're probably just like all representing like a different emotion inside my head, but I feel like they make a lot of decisions that I would never make in real life, and some of them are so different from me that if I didn't think of them as a person, I would feel like they were still somewhat like dying. Like if I didn't think of what they were doing each day, if I didn't think about their family, like I don't want to separate their family. Like they have lives, they have jobs, they have houses, they have kids, like different things. Like if I didn't continue it, like what would they do with their lives? It's sad. It's so I'm so connected. It's hard to think of not letting them continue their life because like I started it. I feel like I should finish it with them.
Yeah, I for me, I feel like I said before, like it's a, for me anyway, my experience is more like a trance state. It's not part of me. I'm observing it. I'm not creating it. Like, well, that's how it feels. Obviously, I'm creating it somehow. But
Yeah, like I don't put myself in the daydream. I just know I'm making it, but I'm not even like a character in the story personally.
yeah, and that makes it hard to do what Jack said. It makes it hard to be able to recognize these people as a part of yourself because you do not experience them as a part of yourself. They are separate entities. I want to keep reminding people like that, not in like an alter way with that happens with DID, not in like a tulpa way where they have sentience, nothing like that. But they are kind of, they're imaginary, but they are separate from yourself. So I think maybe with a couple of years of therapy, I could probably do what Jack said and internalize that and be okay with it. But but as it is right now, no, it doesn't even make sense.
Like I would cry just like thinking about it. It's nice and it's so weird at times too because like we're talking about something that we've had since we were kids, and I added this is like my my sacred secret. Like, I don't tell my friends, I don't tell anyone about these characters because I'm so worried that they're gonna think I'm a freak because nobody wants to understand. So it's nice talking about them without talking about them, and knowing that I'm not going to be judged for it. Like that people love their characters just like I love mine. Like, it's so nice.
I know, isn't it so weird when I've been in the maladaptive daydreaming community for a fair few years now. and and still, even after, like 10 years of talking to maladaptive daydreamers, every once in a while, I'm just like, I cannot believe I relate to this person so hard. It's still blowing my mind, like how in some ways we can just be so similar.
I was just saying it's like a family, like you didn't know you had, but now you do, and they're everywhere.
Oh, we have a question.
Yeah, we have a question from the audience. Right. So when you choose not to daydream, what do you do instead? What other coping mechanisms could you focus on to reduce the time you spend daydreaming?
For me, because I feel like I always need to be doing something imaginative, otherwise my brain feels like it just needs some sort of release. But I don't want to pace and put on music. I can't do that all day. Sometimes I'll get on a computer game that I really like or something, and then while I'm playing that game, I'll just create a nice little story in my head of like the avatar that I'm playing with, like their life, what they're doing, or if I'm doing homework, I make up a character in my head that's actually doing the homework and not me. And so I'm still doing the work and I'm still enjoying it, but I'm just pretending like it's something else and I'm making it a lot cooler than it actually is, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I heard of people like when they wanted to study something or remember something, imagining explaining it like a character of theirs explaining it to someone else or like making it a part of their daydream. It sounds interesting. I've never tried it.
Like, I can never play like just any computer game now without being like the game has some story behind it. It's got some like background to it. Like, they all have their own little mini stories that I just kind of pick up with, and then I'm still playing the game, but it's not just me hitting random buttons for hours for no reason.
I can't really do that for some reason. Like if I'm daydreaming, I'm completely focused on it. Like I zero in on it and I can't do anything else at the same time. So if I want to do like something actually productive, I usually switch to something like watching YouTube and doing something I want to do at the same time. So my brain is occupied with a video and I can still do the thing. Do you know like what I mean? Like multitasking a little bit.
That's exactly what I do. How are we so similar? I will turn on podcasts and stuff to make sure that I clean my kitchen so that portion of my brain is occupied while I am doing something else.
So it's not boring. Yeah. Are you sure you don't want to get screened for ADHD? Just asking. Because it's common. Your brain has to be always running with ADHD and
I have been screened for ADHD.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, to be fair, though, I was a child at the time, and back then I don't think girls were diagnosed at the rate they are these days.
Yeah, that's fair. They were looking for mostly hyper like you have to be really active to be diagnosed with ADHD back then. Anyway, I got distracted. What I was talking about? Oh yeah, so doing something at the same time. So even if I play video games, I watch videos and listen to a podcast at the same time. So otherwise, I would want to daydream. And a good advice, Dimmer gave me this advice such a long time ago, and I still hang to it. So if you feel like you want to daydream, change the setting you're in. So because you're probably too bored or too stressed in the setting you're in, like go to a different room, start doing something else. Just change something because if you want to daydream, you can't really stop yourself from it. Like, it's really hard to do. But if you change your surroundings, it becomes much easier. So that's what I usually do. I change my surroundings. I find something else, like a YouTube video or a video game to do. And it usually helps with stress too. Maybe not as well as Maladaptive Daydreaming, but still.
I mean, I do. I just recently, a couple months ago, I got into reading fantasy because you're not going to see me doing anything realistic. No way to funny. I read, I play on the computer, but I do usually while I'm reading, sometimes I'll kind of zone out, play a little bit of the characters from the books in a different situation. Then I got to catch myself and get back into the actually reading, or if I'm on the computer, I'll just kind of daydream at the same time. I wish there was something I could say I did that had nothing to do with daydreaming, but I feel like everything I do, I'm always somewhat not, like, I'm always thinking about something else that's way more entertaining to keep myself occupied. But reading and playing on the computer, really, it's when I'm most focused on one thing, for sure.
To be fair, daydreaming takes up so much time and energy, it's hard to have other hobbies.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, if you had a hobby that took up as much time as daydreaming did, you'd just have a new problem. You'd just be an obsessive, pathological knitter.
To be fair, you're probably an awesome knitter. Like, if you spend so much time practicing, you'll be so good at it.
You would be the ruler of knitters. You would be legendary.
I know. Like, you could open a store with your own item.
But I mean, that's a hobby that creates something. A lot of time with MD, some people are able to harness that and turn it into like writing, and that's a common advice. Like, why don't you put it down on paper? Which is hard in reality. But I'm kind of thinking of kind of replacing daydreaming with all the stuff I daydream about, but actually doing it, like playing an instrument, because that's creating something, making music. So anything that creates is something that I'd like to emphasize so that it doesn't feel like wasted time. Even if I daydream during it, it's not wasted. So my advice would be to pick up any sort of hobby where you can see the results of what you've done. It feels good, and it makes you want to do it more.
Yeah, I have found I found I can't do that with, like, I know how to knit, I know how to draw, I can make jewelry. I have 1,000 of those kind of creative hobbies. But the ones that I found the best for me personally are like making YouTubes, making this podcast, things that I can share. Because if I draw something and nobody's going to see it, like, I internalize that as like, what's even the point? Yeah, there's a social aspect to it that's very important to me personally. Just to add on there.
And we very much appreciate all your efforts, and Levi's too, when he's here.
Yeah, they're load shedding in South Africa, so his electricity isn't even on right now. That's where we're going to leave it for today. Yeah, thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, follow, whatever the button is, wherever you are. There's going to be some resources listed down in the description. We publish on the 1st and 16th of every month. And I feel like I'm forgetting something. There's something else I should say, isn't there?
The last podcast I listened to, Levi also said that if you want to join the podcast, you can join the Discord.
Yeah, what Mon said, join the Discord. If you want to be part of the podcast or part of the audience, you can join the Discord, linked below, and add the podcast role to yourself. That's where we plan all the episodes. And I think that's it. Yeah, that was. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having us. It was really fun.
How do you guys feel?
I gotta keep this hot out.
The first time.
I feel like I need to pace.